picks and bans are ready for game one. I'm very interested to see where a lot of these drafts are going to centralize.
Well, with the Camelot Kings being in that first pick position, again, have to expect that some of those more priority bans like the Giannis, possibly even Raijin being a very heavily contested mid laner between these two teams. I know that Tings definitely feels comfortable and confident whenever he gets the Hera, but you have to remember how well that Hera was executed in their most recent set. So I think that the Jade Dragons, they are certainly a team to do their homework, and they've probably come up with some very similar shutdown strategies against the Hera, because I think what makes Hera so awesome is the front line surrounding her. And so if the Jade Dragons are able to take away some of those essential dive assets, then that could be problematic for the Kings. And already Osiris going to be taken away, and that has been a big one for the Kings.
And not just that, it was also the Khepri that you coupled along with the Hera. I think that's what made her so powerful for the Kings, and we saw it respectively banned away the next two games between the Kings and Leviathan's match. And second game, the Hera really struggled because she didn't have that extremely safe backline support that comes from a Khepri. But as the final bans go through, we do see a Giannis ban. Both these players like Giannis, with the recent buff to the Conduit Gem, makes his early a little bit better with it, a little bit more power. But overall, just the slipperiness of this mage, the ability to weave in and out of fights, get your team across the map, has made him such a diverse pick, and kind of this resurgence that we see at the tail end of Phase 2. On the flip side, we see the Tiamat, the Osiris, as you highlighted, Gilgamesh banned away, and Artemis Odin, and that just leaves a very dangerous pick for first one. Usually Genetics gets this one insta-ban from him, but Ymir, the first pick.
Well, Raijin's going to be the immediate response. Talked about how that Giannis, Raijin were probably going to be two of the centerpieces as far as mid-focus was concerned, because you have to assume Jade Dragons, they're content with playing into Morgan Le Fay, getting a pick like Raijin online. A lot of range damage there that could be applied, so maybe Morgan Le Fay a little bit less problematic here. And pairing the Circuit alongside of it could mean trouble for this Ymir. Yes, it's a strong pick for Genetics. Yes, Genetics always looks fantastic on the Ymir. He's had great, I think, placements with his walls especially, and his ability to separate teamfights and cause chaos could be hindered, though, because of this Circuit. So much mobility, very difficult, I think, for a more immobile Guardian like Ymir to get away. But Jade Dragons maybe wanted to take some notes towards the double Guardian playstyle the Camelot Kings have been opting for, because I could see a potential Cerberus or Terra in the future here for the Kings.
It would not surprise me one bit if we saw either of those Guardians, especially the Cerberus. He has been such a popular pick. I say she because we see the Hell immediately lock in, speaking of popular picks, who has really risen as of recent between mid and solo, some flexibility for it, so it doesn't leave the Jade Dragons out just yet. They can't just say, okay, cool, Hell's in, start banning solo. There's still the best possibility it will go solo, and then they just wasted a couple picks for mid. But we talked about all these other guys, all these things that you got to take away. You got to make sure to ban away from XYZ player. Completely forgot about the fact that Yamoja wasn't even banned, and makes it all the way to third pick for the Dragons.
I can't blame the Kings, though. When you think about some of the other priorities that have to take place up against the Jade Dragons, I definitely respect that Artemis Odin ban out alongside the Giannis, but Jade Dragons, they're also not convinced that this Hell is intended for the mid lane. They're going to go ahead and ban that Persephone just because why not? She is eligible for play, yet again, she was bugged. That's been fixed, and now she is available one more time for competitive play, but again, Jade Dragons, they're not going to allow her to come through in game number one for this set at the very least. And I'm not going to lie, J-Mag, looking at these top three is just a direct comparison. Yes, we've seen a lot of positives from the Camelot Kings in past performances with the top three that they've opted for so far. Nethroid, especially on that ROM, has always looked so strong. But Yamoja, I think, is the real game changer between these two top three so far, because Ymir, yeah, he's got a wall, but Yamoja's got two even better. Ones. And I think that for gods that have as little of mobility as what the Kings have opted for, the Jade Dragons certainly have a very big advantage, I would imagine, in terms of just collapse potential.
And I think, we kind of briefly mentioned the Persephone. She's now back and available for play. That could even more now shake up some of these mid lane picks and kind of shake up some of the draft potential, because for a few of our mid laners here, I think Darda's, Big Man Tings, especially with those two, They really do like this Persephone. I think even Shinto has a pretty strong Persephone. That was a very hot pick for him earlier on in the season. And now the fact that she is back and available for play is a little threatening as far as the drafts go. Now you've got to make a lot of big decisions. The Jade Dragons, their decision is to take the Cerberus for themselves. While they had the Camelot Kings, they did ban the Izanami and the Cabrakan, taking a shot at Fine-OK from his performance with it. And in response, the Camelot Kings grabbed Merlin, so the Hell will not be going to mid lane. It will be going the way of Variety for the solo.
And this is a very aggressive composition so far from the Jade Dragons. I think that the Camelot Kings have some pieces to look for the response here, most notably looking at that Erlong Shen, but I am concerned about the power spikes currently for the Camelot Kings. I do feel as though the Jade Dragons have a slight edge throughout the laning phases at the very least, and I also think that when it comes down to it, Cerberus compared to Hell in a team fight environment, I would just place a little bit more favoritism towards that Cerberus because of the River's Rebuke that's going to be right behind him. And as far as PandaCat is concerned, I mean, the world is his oyster at this point in time. No real hunter bans against him other than the Izanami and the Rom having been taken away, but Panda is such a diverse player within his own right, and the Ho Yi to boot just doubling down on all of that AoE presence for the Jade Dragons.
To make some movements here, and that's impactful when you consider all the opponents that you could be going up against in the Phase 2 playoffs. Everyone playing at their best, and so this one should be a lot of fun to watch here between two top teams.
Yeah, I believe if the Jade Dragons come out with a win in this set, it drops the Camelot Kings down to 4th seed, if my math checks out. And yeah, I don't trust my math, Dave, if history's any indicator.
Interesting pickup already for genetics here, Myth, because we often talk about when do we see Phantom prioritized, and you know, it's if there's an Odin plus Ymir or Yamoja on the other for a little bit longer. Though Netroid pops a couple pots, keeps himself active. It's in moments like this, though, where you have to look, where is Captain Twig? Well, he's on the right side of the map, so PBM and PandaCat are just fine.
Speaking of junglers, Sanford Soccer does not often go towards this Serket pick. I think this is something that we've only seen very recently from him, so I'm excited to see how it pans out, and so far, pretty good.
That is a lot of damage onto big man Tings, who still has speed. Percussive Storm is enough, and Hurrywin waltzes on in on the back end of a Sanford Soccer invade and picks up first blood. Uh-oh, now Genetics under some threat as well, but already healthy enough. So Genetics will walk away, but it's going to be a purple buff drop as well here. Lots of buffs being taken away from the Camelot Kings as well as first blood. Solo lane into victory. And some other teams in the league have absolutely picked it up, but it's really Kings plus Hell is what you think of. PandaCat alone. Captain Twig makes Netroid not alone here. Drops the Suns all, but it's a pin from Captain Twig, who's taking a lot of damage here. Taunt through, but he's got to get the kill.
He wins those!
Oh no, PandaCat has turned around the 2v1. Does he live? That's the question. Netroid does not have his snipe.
He's out!
And he does not have the range. I asked on the Hunter waiting room, why don't you attack PandaCat? This is why, because he's got all the help in the world. Netroid, he'll fall as well, and what a turnaround from the Jade Dragons.
If you are going to step to PandaCat, you better come correct with a poison-tipped dagger, because that first hit needs to ring true, and he turns it all around.
Uh-oh, the Jade Dragons, they keep their foot on the gas. Phantom used by Genetics, but he turns around for the double freeze, and that seals his fate. Sanford Soccer adds his first kill of the game, and this is the Jade Dragons that was missing in 2 out of the 3 games against the Olympus Bolts.
Yeah, the Dragons are the team of, our matches are going to be quick and they're going to be one-sided one way or the other. Not many teams are dragging out these engagements against the Jade Dragons. Instead, it's about who gets off to a roaring start, and now it's Twig off to a roaring start, at least able to force Sanford Soccer back to base.
Twig had his ult there. Maybe looking at a kill on a Sanford Soccer who didn't have much mana or much health. At least it'll be a jungle invade now for the Camelot Kings. Blue buff not ready to go. Fino-K has to be careful here. 3 members of the Camelot Kings looking towards this tier 1 tower. Fino has his ultimate. He also has Blink. Blink plus jump equals safety. Captain Twig. Oh, it's a great wall from Genetics to keep his jungler at bay of the impending threat. So the Jade Dragons mainly. Fino-K will get away with one. Unfortunately, looks like this tier 1 tower may go down.
Twig didn't trust his support there, Dave. Uses the beads when he doesn't really have to. That wall from Genetics would have accomplished the exact same thing, so
even in levels with this Raijin, got a Charon's coin and a soul gem, so there's still plenty of damage to come out of this mid lane here for the Camelot Kings. What can you do against Fino-K here? The tier 1 tower is down, so you got more range to fight in this one. Cleanse onto Captain Twig will negate the Stygian Torment. Captain Twig has the ultimate, but he won't get a chance to use it. Polar Bear Mike rotates over, so Fino-K is able just to walk away.
Yeah, look at that. Final K is already so hard to kill with all that defense and building into a breastplate of valor as well. Mike, though, way easier to kill.
PBM, he'll use the beads here, and then the River's Rebuke. He'll Riptide himself away. Captain Twig trying to chase him down, but PBM, one final Riptide, secures his escape. And now Final K, the target of Variety. That was a collapse onto one target for the Camelot Kings. And they're able to do half of PBM's HP, and that's about it. Maybe now eyes to the Pyro, but instead no good. And the Camelot Kings will realize they're coming up empty-handed and back off.
That was a pretty expensive attempt there from the Camelot Kings. Cost them their Heavenly Sprint as well as their Phantom. Jade Dragons, on the other hand, just used the beads on Mike, but still is an opportunity for the Kings to look towards this neutral objective with all that space created, and it will go their way. Gold lead, though, still largely in favor of the Dragons.
Oh, Sanford Soccer, he's engaged onto big man Tings here. Look at the Taiko drums. They're perfect from Hurrywind. Nearly gets the kill, and in fact it does onto big man Tings. Now it's a killing spree for Hurrywind out of the mid lane. Chronos Pendant plus early Obsidian Shard, I guess, does a lot of damage to BMT. So now Tier 1 tower in the mid lane, plus a kill for the Jade Dragons.
Surely not a speed buff steal here. Sanford Soccer tries his best and does get it over the wall with ambush, gets him out alive, and that's a kill on the big man Tings, a Tier 1 tower, a speed buff invade, and now a red invade as well.
In support. And so the Oni Fury doesn't have levels, but I imagine it's a few levels down on the Jade Dragons here. And so the Jade Dragons take that one down with ease. How do the Camelot Kings respond? It's pushing up the lanes that we can. They are looking at the Tier 2 tower on right. Jade Dragons hovering, seeing if anyone from the Camelot Kings overextends. This would be an okay win if the Camelot Kings are able to get this tower, but you've got a couple members of the Jade Dragons closing this gap. Can you at least get the tower? Hurrywind's got something to say about it. It's a taunt through from Captain Twig. Taiko drums, pouring out just a little bit of damage, finds about half of Twig's HP and half of Variety's HP as well. Stygian Torment from Fino K will drop Variety right where he is. Sanford Soccer looping around the backside. This hill is in some danger, and Fino K burns her down for the kill.
Well, we'll see whether or not Captain Twig's able to make his way out. There's the beads, and the transformation's good, or maybe not. Great stun, Hurrywind. Credit for that kill, and nice little micro play from the Camelot Kings. The taunt from the Taiko drum was denied, but at the end of the day, the Dragons get what they want.
Well, and the Kings are sending 3 to the duo lane here to kill off Panda Cat, and it won't matter. Genetics is going to take a lot of damage there. Bang Van Ting realizes it's a fruitless effort, and Netroid, he just wants to farm, close up that 3-level gap a little bit. So not only did the Camelot Kings not get the Tier 2 tower on
they
right,
didn't get it? Oh,
they're going to lose their own Tier 2 tower, plus a couple of kills. This game, I was going to say slowly being pulled away from the Camelot Kings, but I don't know if a 6,000 gold lead in 16 minutes is all that slow here for the Jade Dragons. And this one's starting to spiral just a little bit. Still grouping.
Not the speed.
It's going to be another speed buff invade if
no, don't do it.
Captain Twig wants to go secure it. He'll transform. Oh, no, he uses his transformation. Taunt through. Goodbye, Captain Twig. Hurrywind will put him on down for the rampage.
And then he jumps aggressively into the lane, trying to catch out Variety as well. The Jade Dragons are just bullying at this point. And the Camelot Kings have a couple options. They could turn off their monitor so you're not getting cyberbullied anymore.
Yeah, right.
Or they could show up to this Fire Giant and potentially try and put up a steal, but nobody's really in range as of yet, and it is getting absolutely shredded.
PBM loves this frenzy, whether he's on the Fafnir or on literally any other support. Helps his team get these objectives quicker. And quietly goes the FG
Burn
to
a lot
the
of their
Jade
time
Dragon.
just traversing the map. Only 1 minute left on this Fire Giant power play, but Smite's a fast game, and 1 minute's a long time.
And no ward coverage for the Kings in their own jungle, just outside of the left side of their base, though I think you know where the Jade Dragons are going to be pushing. It's the left side of the map here. Could be a very quick game here if the Jade Dragons are able to close it off. Wall for wall, but one is an ult and the other is just an ability, so Genetics may be out ahead of that engagement. Variety gets stunned on through. Panda Cat takes some damage in return, and Variety will help sustain up the rest of his team here just a little bit. Draugr buff is there for the Camelot Kings. Might play a role if the Jade Dragons try to quickly get this one taken down.
It is Heavenly Sprint traded out by Variety there, so that's a good deal of utility lost on the escape, but could still be an aggressive play here from the Kings. If they can get Twig in the back, that's a start.
Forbear Mike pinned down. 30 seconds left on the FG buff. Fino K has found Netroid, and look at the damage Fino is doing alone, being tickled by Netroid with those auto attacks. Left side Phoenix still stands here. Sun's break down from Panda Cat. No ults remaining from the Jade Dragons. A couple still there for the Camelot Kings, notably Captain Twig. I'm not sure he wants to taunt anyone in from the Jade Dragons. That's tough, because look, early on in the game, I mean, Twig is somewhat high on these damage charts because early in the game, the Erlang Shenwu was swinging around, but That just hasn't happened once this game spiraled out of control. So Fire Giant started by the Jade Dragons. You can already see Camelot Kings all on the left side of the map. There will be no attempt on this one. I like to play from Fine OK here. Let's get this mid wave pushing. Let's see if we can get the right wave pushing with Hurrywind here. We don't need everyone around the FG.
At least one member of the Camelot Kings. Keep your eye on this one, Dave. It could be a very fast siege.
Yeah, why not, right? I mean, you got blinks, you got leaps on most members, you got Riptides to bring you in there. The ability to close the gap is prominent for the Jade Dragons as they walk forward. Wall from Genetic slows things down on the left side of this fight. Still, everyone in the game's got their ultimates. Everyone in the game has got their relics as well. Captain Twig taunts a few in, and it's Fine OK taking damage. Big man Ting's far enough in the build to do some damage on this Merlin. Around the left side goes Sanford Soccer and Panda Cat Mike. Low in the back as Variety walks forward. Netrioid, he has to crash down out of the ultimate, but he's lost half of his health in the meantime. This one not as clean just yet for the Dragons.
That is a strange phantom from Genetics there. Lost out on that capacity inside of the team fight. Sanford Soccer first in. Great wall!
Oh, it's a perfect wall, and that's kept Sam at bay. Camelot Kings on the board for the first time this game, 24 minutes in, and that has sent this Phoenix Siege right on back. Jade Dragons now have to wait 45 seconds for their jungler.
You can't let Genetics get this much time. Eventually, he is going to find a wall. That changes the fight. Twig, isolated though, should be able to make it out.
Uh-oh, a collapse in here from the Camelot Kings. Fine OK isolated. Fine OK decimated. Panda Cat locked in by Genetics as well. What is happening? The crumble of the Jade Dragons happening right outside the right side of the Camelot Kings base. And they are back in this game. They are down in gold, but their base stands.
Genetics, the Camelot Kings for the first time have the potential to step up.
And look at the way Genetics, if I'm remembering correctly, yeah, this is where Sam blinks
in.
So
gross.
He stuffs Sam for Soccer. Absolutely stuffs him. Category. Probably the most even fight, though, we've seen since the first 10 minutes of the game.
Completely agree. So now it's time for Genetics to keep stepping up to the plate, and if he keeps playing like he has been, I trust him to do so. But Variety is going to have to get a lot of value from these cleanses. A couple times this game, the Camelot Kings have been getting some pretty good cleanses from Variety, but they haven't trusted him. They've used their own beads, they've used their own defensive tools. If they could just rely on this hell, that's going to give them a significant advantage.
Immediate start on the FG by the Jade Dragons. Fine OK separating things out. He is stunned, and he is melted. Fine OK leaps away. Three-man taunt from Captain Twig. That prompts out the ult here from PBM. Sanford Soccer yet again left alone with the Camelot Kings front line. And the Jade Dragons have to walk away. Captain Twig used his ultimate, and that's it. The Jade from the Jade Dragons, at least for the next 5 seconds or so until those beads come back up. Same thing with Captain Twig here. Twig had a great taunt on through, and I think that's kind of what burned off those beads from the carries there of the Jade Dragons. Twig also had to use its beads in that little skirmish. So everyone in the game, as I finish that sentence, has their actives back up. Also, Fire Giant now enhanced since we started to do this little dance around the FG, so becoming ever so important for the Camelot Kings to step forward and try to contest. You have to watch the frenzy from Mike. That's when you know this Dragons team wants to commit onto the FG. Genetic steps forward, gets a freeze on the Fine OK. A little damage, follows in on the back, and the leap gets used now by the Cerberus. Fire Giant taken down beneath half HP, but it's reset.
And it's the Jade Dragons retreating yet again. A chess match between these two teams. The Fire Giant remains low. Gotta play safe.
It's going down quickly, and it gets taken down by the Jade Dragons. Up to the sky goes Netrioid, but the DOT from Sanford Soccer takes down the carry. Captain Twig alone in the back, and Hurrywind has turned his scope there. It's a double kill for Sanford Soccer, and Hurrywind's got one as well. The Camelot Kings, they stepped up. They turned this game around. But Miff, I'm not sure it's enough. Enhanced Fire Giant on all 5 of the Dragons. A big taunt in. It looks like the Jade Dragons are taking game 1.
But it wasn't nearly as easy as I would have expected, Dave, considering how dominant they've been up until that last 5 or 6 minute stretch. The Camelot Kings, playing into a massive deficit for 30 uninterrupted minutes, were able to at least make the Jade Dragons sweat a little bit. Can't think that the Jade Dragons are going to be able to pull that exact same lead yet again. We might be looking at a similar situation as the last Dragon set in that it's a team that takes one-sided matches back-to-back, but not necessarily always in their favor.
I think if you're the Dragons and a Dragons fan, though, I think you got to be confident in the fact
that Dragons initiation was looking like, and we saw some of that counter engagement potential coming out of Variety and Genetics alongside of, Captain Twig, Bimman, Tinks, Nectaroid. They're all looking for the follow-up, but in the end, J-Mac, I think that this was really just a simple I don't want to say it was an oversight by any means for the Camelot Kings, but I think they definitely had an idea in their heads of what they wanted to do with a specific draft and just didn't really have many tools left to actually try and recover because there was just so much counter drafting coming out of the Jade Dragons throughout that picks and bans. I don't think that this game one is a very good representative of what the Camelot Kings are actually capable of. I think that this was just a steep difference in two very it was just a steep difference in the compositions. That's really all there is to be said.
Yeah, and I think that one play over in dual lane that was just highlighted from Panicat really exacerbated how far ahead the Dragons were going in this first one. Now, that was very early in the game. There wasn't a huge lead, but the fact that Panicat was able to 2v1 in his own lane against Netroid, against Captain Twig, didn't start off super hot for them. Also, when you're being dove at your back Harpy camp as a mid laner at level, what was that, minute like 4 of the game, like minute 3, 4 for you guys, and ready for us to see what happens with it. I think the biggest oversight, as you mentioned, was the fact that Yemoja not only didn't get banned, but got third picked by the Dragons. It was the last pick before going into the second round of bans, and the fact that Yemoja made it that far through, and the fact that Genetics prioritized the Ymir over the Yemoja, I think that may speak a little bit of the Kings here.
I think the Kings really had a lot of confidence in that Ymir, and for good reason. Genetics has looked great on him, and even in Game 1, he was almost the reason why the Camelot Kings were nearly able to delay long enough to reach that point of the game where their composition could actually thrive, but I think they just fell short of the mark there. Jade Dragons, on the other hand, there is a chance, I would say, that they wind up just banning the emoji here, not even wanting to take the risk of the Camelot Kings looking to prioritize an Ymir again over the M.
This Hell, I don't know. Like, Hell has been recently rising back up. We talked a lot about it in game number 1 on the Death segment, where Hell can be played mid or solo. You kind of have the pick of the litter between those two with it. But in that game, it just felt like the Hell, because they were lacking that front line, the Hell wasn't able to kind of pick up that slack. They fell behind very early by the point that they were actually team fighting with Variety. The Hell didn't have the damage online. There was already too many anti-heal options available for the Dragons. Do you think that Hell maybe loses a little bit of priority for game 2?
Might prefer to see the Kings look for that Cerberus as opposed to the Hell, but I don't hate the Hell outright in solo. I just think that, again, for what the Kings wanted to draft, they just didn't really do themselves any favors in terms of not really taking into consideration what counter draft measures the Jade Dragons would be opting for. And I do like seeing the response of removing that Circuit, because like I just said, you can't have Raijin and Circuit combined, not with Sanford Soccer, not with Hurrywin. Those two are mechanically insane, and when you give them 2 golden apples to deal with, that's just not, it is not the place that you want to be. Twigs already had to live that nightmare in game number 1. That did not look like a fun time in the slightest for the Erlong Shen, but one more time, Yemoja potentially looking to be left open here, because if I recall, it was a Gilgamesh prioritization here out of the Jade Dragons, but Camelot Kings, like I said, I would expect them to come back with a little bit of a vengeance here in Game 2.
Yeah, so far for the bans, they've swapped out the Artemis for a Circuit instead, because that was such a huge thorn in their side for Game 1. Dragons still have the option for their final ban. They've got the same ones going through, the Tiamat Osiris. Gilgamesh was their 3rd ban last time, but I don't see a world where the Dragons can get Yemoja 2 games in a row as 2nd pick. If they don't ban this here, I have to imagine the Kings are just going to snap lock it and take it away from Mike.
I would actually expect the Kings to put a little bit more emphasis into the Raijin first pick there for Big Man Tings, just because they would feel as though they could have just a strong, reliable burst damage mage in that mid-roll position. And it is going to be the Raijin first for the Camelot Kings. Yemoja still open here for the Jade Dragons. Rom as well, and I think with the way that Netroid has been playing, Rom has certainly looked like more of his favoritism preference as opposed to the Artemis.
I mean, there was one point where you look at his stat page on the website, and it was just Rom straight down the column for him. And it wasn't just like Rom and it was like a win every other time. It was like 5 out of the 6 recent ones were wins with that god. So you got to imagine that's where Netroid is putting a lot of favoritism for the Hunter role. Artemis is still available. Izanami's still available as well. So there are a few other Hunters that he could prioritize. But the Jade Dragons, they're immediately going to go ahead and get some of that front line out of the way early. Yemoja, after being left open for the 2nd time, Mike will not risk letting it go to 3rd pick this time with the Raijin locked in for the Kings. So Umoja and Gilgamesh, who was banned away by the Kings game 1, now locked in game 2.
This might serve as a little bit of a deterrence factor, though, for Genetics wanting to take that Amir yet again. Could see prioritization more towards the Cerberus or the Terra. I think that counter-initiation measures are going to be the most impactful part here for the Camelot Kings, because Raijin, he can be great, but when there's all this lockdown from Umoja's River's Rebuke and the Winds of Shamash, I do feel as though it is going to put a lot of stress on the big man tanks in that mid-roll position. And again, thought that the Amir would not be the priority point here for the Kings, but seems as though Genetics just believes, hey, it's just because of that Raijin Circuit in the early game, WoW was never really able to do anything. Now that we've got the Raijin and Circuits off the board, a little bit more wiggle room here, and Kings, Rum, no surprises.
Kings picking apart the damage dealers of the Jade Dragons. They banned the Circuit, as we highlighted much earlier on, but the Raijin taken away. They're going to grab their ROM one more time for Netroid, but it was banned away in the second round of bans in game 1, but after so long of her being competitively banned, we're going to get to see our first Persephone game after her finally resurging and being allowed to be played here. How does this Persephone kind of shake things up now that she's back?
Persephone is ridiculous, and I will always stand by her
Yes, she
being
is.
a ridiculous god, because she is one of the only gods in the game where you don't have to necessarily land your ultimate to prosper from it. You have to remember the AoE introduction that's going to be available here, and I think that with the likes of Umoja and Gilgamesh ultimates on top of that, there is so much lockdown potential for the Jade Dragons here. It's going to be tough, I think, for this Amir Rum, more so than the Raijin, because Raijin at least has the Thundercloud. He can dash away, no problem. But Amir and Rum, on the other hand, they're going to have a little bit more struggles, I would assume, J-Mac, and actually trying to escape this Persephone. And also, one more time, Camelot Kings, they're going to invest bans towards that Artemis and the Izanami, but Pandacat, he just played OG in game 1, and he has no issues running it back in number 2.
Yeah, he doesn't care about the fact that Artemis and Izanami and Rom are taken away. Oh no, they were banned from me game 1. Whatever will I do? I guess I'll just slam pick the OE again. Why not? One interaction. I'm not 100% on this one, so I'll see if you know. If not, somebody will probably correct us at one point through. Can Persephone's ult stop at a Umoja wall? Does your Umoja's wall stop it if it's an ally, to where if you throw a River's Rebuke, you drop Persephone's ult in the middle of that, then it just becomes an inescapable death field? I'm not 100%, but that's a potential that I could see if it is a thing.
If it crashes into someone, I'm fairly confident that it'll stay locked in place. But that's inside of the River's Rebuke. I do believe that it'll actually travel through. It's not like Odin Cage, I want to say.
That's what
And it might actually stop depending on if the River's Rebuke is all the way through, because you have to remember before the walls fully are aligned. That's definitely a little bit more on the line there. It's not something that we really see that often. But
I mean, when do we ever get to see both of these gods on the same team, or let alone both of these gods in a single game at this point? So maybe that's little micro things that could be really cool if they could pull it off. If you get it
in general,
got it.
Just power rank, because we're doing hurry when it's like Yanis, a major gap, and then anything else.
Has he not disproven that at this point?
No, I still think his Yanis is still his bar none best.
But a huge gap? Yeah. All right, we'll talk about Persephone. Doug's got it up. We're making
God,
the poor
Doug.
man wait.
Yeah, so here's the thing about Persephone. If you are a Persephone fan of the OG, she's actually simplified a good deal now since the minor rework. Her plant only has 2 levels. The first level, heal. Second level, it will travel forward when you proc it. Bone Rush applies a slow, has good damage on it, good cooldown. And
Goodness.
yeah,
Oh my goodness.
just dies. Just straight up
Netroid
dies.
misses nothing. Netroid hit every single auto attack in that chain, and Mike had no chance. The perma slow from Genetics was enough. What a difference from game 1. Mike was walking it down with Pandacat.
Damage, maybe. Makes it a little bit less enticing to go for that crit build, which is why you see him go for the cow immediately. Likely going to be a Silver Branch or Odysseus' bow in that next slot. Twig trying to set up for the Scorpion, but Sam's hovering.
Sam is close by, and he's got a 1-level lead. Double Stygian Torment,
Nice.
double stun. What a setup from the Camelot Kings. But the Jade Dragons have got enough damage to turn this one around. Sam for Soccer could get dunked on. Will Captain Twig go back in? 1, 2 say yes,
Good
3
blink.
says no as Sam for Soccer blinks on away. Now Big Man Tings rotates in. He's got the Taiko drums. You gotta hit him. He's hit 1, he's hit 2.
Variety.
But now Variety's gotta clean it up.
Uh-oh.
Kick from Sam. wags his finger in Variety's face, and the Jade Dragons turn it around for a kill.
Hurry went a little slow on the rotation, does spot out Genetics in the jungle, and Mike has got him locked down.
It's a great wall, but then Genetics has one of his own. Freeze onto Mike, and so Genetics likely able to walk away here. No more Grasp of Death from Hurrywin, so lockdown from PBM keeps things interesting. Dash on forward. This is going to be a slow death for Genetics. Has to use the shell and the wall. And now I can say Genetics is going to get away.
Hurrywin not quite able to connect that last Bone Rush, but we got a good look at how hard it is to deal with Persephone's damage. Locking down entire jungle pass. It's constant damage. She's got great slow potential. She's going to keep you there inside of the team fight, and maybe Variety going to be kept here to watch the blue buff go down.
Variety leaps forward. We are still fighting on the right side of the map. Final K has used his ultimate here. Genetics
Twig's back.
Still very low. Hurrywin gets locked down, and Captain Twig ends up getting the kill. Genetics low as well, so Final K is able to at least trade back one. It's an even trade on the right side of the map. We're looking at support on one side, mid on the other, and it could get worse here for the Jade Dragons.
Final K left high and dry and is going to fall down quickly. This time, Big Man Tings connects every single one of those Tycho drums. Jade Dragons stick around just a little bit too long after that about with Persephone. The passive, no longer you just firing abilities post-mortem. Now you can just kind of throw down some seeds, or more often than not, just kind of reset it immediately. You want to get that respawn up fast.
Sanford Soccer jumps onto Netrioid here, goes up into the sky, sends some snipes Sanford Soccer's way, and buys time for Genetics to get on back from base. So Netrioid lives on, but now there's no ultimate from Netrioid.
Hurrywin's pretty far behind already, and it's hard to deal with a Raijin with a lead, especially one that has an enhanced red buff on his belt.
Pandacat sees Netrioid, leaps on over. PBM just short on the ultimate. Netrioid has to use his beats, but you got to imagine there's no chance, and there is in Pandacat. Will grab the kill here in the dual lane, and that is just a sudden onslaught from the Jade Dragons. No real chance for Netrioid.
A hard-fought battle for 30-some-odd minutes, and now are still bringing pressure inside the early game. It is a Trigger Scorpion attempt here, but a great wall for Genetics. Isolates Mike, stun. Not good for Variety.
Mike gets a couple stunned on the back, though, and then there's a Grasp of Death onto Variety. The chain CC is nuts from the Jade Dragons, but Variety is able to leap away. A late set of beads is enough to save Variety's life. Thunder Crash away from Big Man Tings. There's a Ratatoskr in the sky. Has then made contact with the mid lane Harpy, so both teams able to get out of this one.
Back to base, finishes Karen's coin completely on that back, so maybe had he had that item, Variety wouldn't still be drawing breath right now. Final K, on the other hand, finds himself surrounded and in an admittedly poor position.
Final K has his ult, but unfortunately CC immunity won't save you from damage. Leaps on away. PBM throws up a wall on left, and that's Genetics who's trying to get back in to save or re-engage on the Final K, unable to do so, and that's just a walk-it-down kill from the Camelot Kings. Final K did not have the chance to get out, and Miff, now it's a killing spree for Captain Twig on this Ratatoskr. Brawler's Beat Stick has the first completed item after the Acorn, so the jungle feeling okay here for the Camelot Kings.
Quick beads from Netrioid, saves him from being stunned against the wall here, but does lose out on his tier 1 tower on the other side. I want to give a shout out to Genetics and Big Man Tings, actually acting as goaltender for that engagement on the Camelot Kings, able to intercept both Hurrywin and PBM on the rotation of peel out Final K. It makes the Kings come up ahead inside of that one. Gold Fury is available, and it is the Jade Dragons with Oracle Vision right now.
Doing it.
Kings, they're there.
Jade Dragons are close by as the Camelot Kings have started up the Gold Fury. Will Winds of Shamash get the last bit of damage? No, it won't. Not for the time being. Sanford Soccer jumps in, and the Camelot Kings secure the objective. Genetics with a late wall keeps himself alive on the side. The Jade Dragons find the first, and they find the second in this game, or in this kill as well. Captain Twig down. Genetics has also fallen. There's a trade-out kill from the Kings onto Sanford Soccer, and the Kings get the Gold Fury. Though it's Big Man Tings this time. Still Chronos Pendant. In fact, both mid laners have gone Chronos Pendant.
Fast.
And then an early Ob Shard. Pyromancer started. My God, Captain Twig drop-kicked against the wall and took way too much damage to really have a chance there. But now it's Sanford Soccer locked in the chain CC, and Big Man Tings will pick up the kill. It's a Thunder Crash away to keep his life going, but it's a double Whirlwind of Rage and Steel to send Genetics right back into the backline of the Jade Dragons, and now it's Polar Bear Mike being run down.
Pandacat starting to work his way all the way around the fight, but might be too little too late. Polar Bear Mike falls down. But the Camelot Kings are deep in enemy territory.
Man, Netrioid is swinging in this fight. This ROM has been untouched. Big Man Tings has to use the Aegis. Panicat has found a kill on the other side of this fight, but Netrioid's got two as well, and it might just be both hunters swinging at one another by the time that this fight is over. And this one does settle. Jump onable. That's not a word at all, but I'm going to stick with it because I think it hits the mark pretty well here. Yeah, write it down. Somebody get it. It's also two words, so I don't know if you maybe throw a hyphen between the two. Maybe it works. Pyromancer taken by the Camelot Kings, but the right side of the map has just started to feel maybe awkward here for this Jade Dragons team. Final K at 1 and 3 has been punished pretty often in these fights.
He has been. Hurrywin finds himself punished as well. Dropped down to 50%.
Tosker.
Kings, they want this.
Where does Captain Twig go? Not into the back line is the answer. Tier 1 tower takes a lot of damage. Netrioid left alone thanks to the Riptide of PBM. It's a jump in from Panicat and a slow, but beads get used by Netrioid here. Variety has to leap away over the Riptide of Polar Bear Mike. And it's not only no Tier 1 going down in mid, it's a complete reversal of the pressure. Now the Jade Dragons work their own way in, and they will get the Tier 1 tower of the Camelot Kings.
Now where they're going to go afterward, Gold Fury and Pyromancer dead, no Tier 1 on left, might just be we see them fizzle out.
Once in a while. The Camelot Kings still playing with an advantage in the solo lane. A level down now is Final K. It was 2 levels just a moment ago. So you're going to have to see more out of the Xing Chen if you're going to have an advantage, or you're going to have a fighting chance if you're the Jade Dragons around this Fire Giant that the Kings had started up with a drop. Genetics separates out this fight. A freeze onto Mike, who has to use the beads. Sun's breaking down onto the Ymir. Variety alone in the backline. Stygian Torment sends Mike right back into what would have been the awaiting arms of the Camelot Kings, but nobody's in range to deal the damage. Everyone from the Kings has been pushed back, but Big Man Tings with a little bit of that delayed damage, able to get a kill onto Sam.
Twig dunks down onto both carries of the Jade Dragons and walks away with 100% HP. Absolutely crazy. Take a peek at these relics, Dave. I don't think the Dragons can stick around much longer. It's just Sam that still has his, and it's just Sam that's dead.
And look at how in sync, I'll pause on that, as the leap away from Final K keeps things interesting here. Slightly low on the health bars, Genetics and Netrioid and Variety.
Yeah, so the Kings somehow maintain just about every single relic, barring Genetics' relics, inside of that engagement. So every single one of them still has engage and defensive capabilities inside of this fight. Jade Dragons, I think, can still try and steal, but I don't think it comes down to an actual 5-on-5 engagement. It's a steal attempt. This kind of, okay, well maybe, all right, no, that's it. They've done it. They can defend now.
Yeah, that's actually very important that Captain Twig has used the ultimate here. If he had found a moment to engage there, maybe things get interesting, but now that big Ratatoskr ultimate off the table. Lead, but it's not nearly as big a lead as the Jade Dragons had in game 1. So really the difference then becomes the actives, the ultimates, things like that. It's an immediate start here from the Camelot Kings. The Jade Dragons responding from the mid lane. Big Man Tings has got Final K in mid. This one going down slowly. Are you going to have to pull off if you're the Camelot Kings? The answer is yes, but Final K is around the backside. Can he leap in safely? No, he cannot. So the Camelot Kings back away.
Grasp of Death used from so far away. Does connect with 3, but is immediately removed from the map. And, well, the rest of the Dragons weren't in range. They generate enough threat to pull the Dragons away, and, well, they are able to at least disengage safely as well. Take a peek at Captain Twig, though. Might have his work cut out for him in a 1v1.
Does have Mannequin's Hidden Blade, and that is a lot of damage that connects onto Sam for Soccer. 1v1 in the mid, and Captain Twig washes his hands of Sam for Soccer. And so now the Camelot Kings have a bit of an advantage on the map immediately, but they're not going to push it.
A little bit tankier, and Variety picks up a power potion as well. Seems like the Camelot Kings are announcing this next team fight is likely the last one, and Fire Giant should go their way. Jade Dragons nowhere in range to defend. Primal Fury seems to be the answer, and a little bit of gold will help out, but against Fire Giant, when you're already playing at a deficit, about 5,000, approaching 6,000 for the Camelot Kings, with 3 towers still standing.
Tested there for a moment with Captain Twig. The Jade Dragons elect not to defend either of their Tier 2 towers, so with 2.5 minutes left on this FG, we're going to be sieging.
It looks like the siege could come through quickly. It's a 3-2 split. Captain Twig and Variety headed up the mid. Maybe Twig has the ability to rotate between either fight with that semi-global ultimate. But it is going to be a slow siege here from the Camelot Kings. It's all about Netrioid and whether or not he's able to close gap, and they've got good space creation tools, be it Big Man Teagues with the Tycho drums, or a Stygian Torment, or just a good wall from Genetics, but Jade Dragons, with Hurry Win on this Persephone, can create so much space and control the entire lane.
You did say something about a good wall, and Genetics at least got one, but the Riptide from PBM keeps Genetics right where he is, the individual target
Grasp with Death
inside that wall, and FinoK finally picks up the kill. That was set up by his support there. Variety locked against the wall as well. He has to leap away, but a lot of damage following up there from Hurrywind.
These plants are so nuts,
one
dude.
kill from the Jade Dragons might be enough, Myth, to send this Fire Giant push right back.
To be either Captain Twig or miraculously Netroid with an ultimate can send it back to base, but his damage is just so nuts.
Maybe a blink forward from Variety. Get something done here. The stun onto Variety, but then it's a follow-up from Captain Twig, but he's in the base of the Jade Dragons. He's all alone. And Panicat throws up in his hands and says, all right, I'll take that kill for free. And now the Jade Dragons have a 4v5 on the map. A wall from Genetics is going to slow down the re-engage, but a whirlwind of Rage and Steel sends Genetics right towards the back line. FinoK takes a lot of damage from BMT. Can Genetics survive? No, he can't. Panicat's got the last auto.
Sanford Soccer on the right-hand side, trying to loop his way around, finds Variety, so the rest of the Dragons can close gap. Could be another pick.
And without Captain Twig, the engage, that backline dive a bit missing. He got a massive ultimate, Captain Twig did.
But
like
everyone
else from the Camelot Kings was just outside of the base. There was no...
Where Big Man Tinks is able to walk in and clear out some of these wards. Notably, that Bracer of replenishment is removed, but only for another 10 seconds. You actually get 20 seconds off your cooldown every time it gets destroyed by an enemy god, so PBM not feeling too bad about it.
A little bit of damage from the Jade Dragons onto the enhanced Fire Giant. Will they commit, though? No Frenzy for Mike this time to give us that cue that the Jade Dragons want to fight. Instead, a lot of damage finds the backline. But look at the backline of the Camelot Kings. It is missing. Sanford Soccer's got the first. Up into the sky goes Netroid. Could be a death on his way back down as Panicat rampages through this team fight. Will finally get taken down by Captain Twig. Netroid left on as well. Sanford Soccer's got the double himself. It's a tale of two fights, but it's the tale of one win here for the Jade Dragons. The Camelot Kings try to engage, but the Jade Dragons punch him in the mouth.
Twig able to blink his way out of there, should be able to walk away with his life. Variety, not nearly as lucky, has 3 dragons on his tail, is able to use that leap away, and no Omi for PBM could spell the end of this one. And Twig going for a bit of a classic Shing play, trying to keep something up on the map.
My
Variety,
God.
well, he's still alive.
That was a sad fight to be a carry, wasn't it? Variety is going to get dove on here, and Sanford Soccer gets 3 in that fight. Now a bit delayed is that final respawn timer. 1 minute on Variety. Everyone else in the game, 30 seconds or less. Captain Twig still here, not able to stop the back. At the beginning of this game was kind of jumping in scot-free. Remember how long ago we were talking about the level lead that was over there in the solo lane? It's felt a little bit different, hasn't it, in these last couple of fights where Variety jumps in. Kind of feels like Serb is just getting blown up.
Genetics almost able to find PBM inside of that one, but the wall not quite good enough. Riptide buys him a little bit of space, and I agree, man. Variety has reached the point of this game where he is likely the tankiest person on the map, barring maybe FinoK, but doesn't feel like it, does it? At any misstep could cost him his life.
Genetics as well. Watch out for the stun from Pandacat, or the root from FinoK, or the stun from Polar Bear Mike. Variety has used his ultimate here. Watch out. Up in the sky is Captain Twig. Big Man Tings dashes on away, uses the Phantom here. Is there a re-engage from Captain Twig? No, there is not, as the Jade Dragons have won that initial engagement, pushing the Camelot Kings back.
Stygian Torment and Captain Twig's ultimate used in exchange for Grasp with Death and PBM's ultimate. So both team fight tools lost
Awkward
from
for Twig.
both teams, but it's Hurrywin with the defensive positioning, and we've talked about these plants, man. They're just going to keep traveling.
It is awkward for Captain Twig now. You don't have Through the Cosmos to find the backline in this fight. Fire Giant started and
they got it
by the Jade Dragons. Twig is in the backline, but he's jumped on now by Panicat. Oh, Sam is taking a whole lot of damage. He walks back in, and Big Man Tings deals the last ticket damage with the Tycho drums. Now it's a re-engage, and look at all the slows from the Raiju. Genetics throws up the wall, but he pays for it with his life. Variety is re-engaged in this fight as well. It's a 1-for-1 trade, but the Dragons have the FG.
It's Variety jumping in yet again, finds Hurrywin with the stun, but nobody there to follow up. Autos to the wall.
He has ult. Stygian Torment's got 2, and it sent him right back to the rest of the Camelot Kings. BMT's got a double. BMT won't get the triple. Instead, the Kings get the deicide. And Miff, I think they're sending us to game 3.
Hope you're happy with your Fire Giant Dragons, because you won't get a chance to use it. 30 seconds on the nearest respawn, and Netroid still draws breath. This Phoenix is a foregone conclusion, and I agree, Dave. I think the Titan is as well.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to have any problem finishing this game in the next 20 seconds. The Jade Dragons mopped in the final team fight of the game. This one, a long, drawn-out effort by the Camelot Kings.
Non-stop, being constantly dove, and I think that Captain Twig, especially on this Ratatosker, was able to accomplish exactly what the Camelot Kings were intending to do with this rat, and that was simply just to make sure that Hurrywin, Panicat never really got a chance to just get those free cast moments off. The team fight from the Jade Dragons, I think, just too impacted by that forced split that the Camelot Kings kept repeating time and time again. And yes, we saw some instances, I think, where Sam, Fino, or Sam and Polar Bear were able to kind of try and turn things around, but by then the damage had already been done. Once you lose your carries, it's very hard to collect anything after the fact, even if you survive the fight.
And Big Man Ting's putting some big damage out with this Raijin. You know, we kind of teased a lot about it in previous sets. We teased a lot about it in even just this set and game before. But I think we're getting to the point where Raijin might need to start being a top ban, because both of these mid laners have shown that they are very prominent with this pick. They've shown that they can output an insane amount of damage. Big Man Ting's going 7-1 this game for the Raijin. I think it might be time that we start talking about Raijin being a top 3 ban.
Raijin could potentially be a top 3 ban. It really just depends on what teams you are looking at. But with a set between mid laners like Hurrywin and Big Man Tings, Raijin definitely looking like the difference maker so far.
Take away some of the safety nets. We jump into picks and bans for game number 3. Maybe the first of many game 3s we'll see this weekend with some of the action-packed sets that we have available. The Jade Dragons, they've been second pick this entire time. Now they're going to be the ones who want that first pick option.
And they're still going to be looking to take away this Osiris. And I think that this is actually an incredibly strong ban option for the Dragons, just because of the fact that they're against Camelot Kings. So much flexibility, I think, with that Osiris, and the fact that Twig has looked incredibly strong whenever he's had a chance to actually utilize some of that early game scaling that Warrior jungles tend to provide. Odin as well, though, not going to have a chance to shine here today, but neither will the Yemoja. Camelot Kings noticing that Yem just a little bit too problematic, and Jade Dragons having banned away that Amir now. Curious to see if they choose to try and either first pick a Raijin or Giannis for themselves. Have to remember the Camelot Kings have been banning away that Giannis in games 1 and 2, but in second pick position, they might opt to leave it open. That way they can get either or.
Yeah, that's going to be the big one, is which one is more prioritized for the Jade Dragons. Is it the Giannis or is it the Raijin? Well, maybe we'll find out here as Serket is the final ban for the Kings. Still a little bit scarred from that game 1 thrashing that Sam for Soccer and Co. were able to put towards the Kings, so they banned that one away, along with, as mentioned, the Yemoja Tiamat, still the standard ban for it. Osiris and Odin, same from the previous games, but Ymir added to the mix with it just because, well, both supports were doing really well both of those games for it, so they're going to make sure to put both of them on something brand new. The Jade Dragons have a big decision to make of what they want to grab in this first slot.
I was curious if they were going to opt for a front line as opposed to just looking for one of the mid lane choices, because again, with both still being open, I think that the Jade Dragons are just putting a little bit more priority into trying to get a composition going that could be complemented by either, and I think that front line is a little bit more impactful between these two teams, because so far that has been the real game changer, at least from my takeaways of watching these games or these teams in both games 1 and 2, because mid laners are fantastic, don't get me wrong, mages can be incredibly strong, but what makes them even better still at a competitive level is actually being able to use their abilities. And I think Cerberus is going to pose a huge threat here to the Camelot Kings, because they don't know if that's going to be for solo guaranteed. I mean, I know we've been seeing a ton of solo Cerb as is, but if the Camelot Kings want to try and run back that hell from game 1 for variety, and Jade Dragons already have this Cerberus in tow, it's going to make things a little bit more complicated, because that is a strong matchup, I think, for the Cerb and solo.
And the Hell never really got to make it to late game for the first time that she was picked around this set, so it's a little interesting to see it picked immediately into the Cerb, where previously it was in the top 3 slot, and then the Cerberus was grabbed immediately afterwards after the bans that were all said and done. Kings will elect for Raijin, so even though they been banning the Giannis away, they left it open this time around, and they feel that this Raijin is more impactful for themselves, making it more impactful for Big Man Tings, but that gives Giannis over away to Hurrywin, and that's not a player that I would want to be giving Giannis to.
Jade Dragons don't necessarily have to take Giannis here, though. There is a chance, I would say, that Jade Dragons might just wait and withhold Hurriwin's pick, and even though it would likely result in him having a couple of those mid laners banned away, have to remember that might open things up for PandaCat later on in the draft, because he's been kind of focused out in games 1 and 2. He's been having his pick prioritized more towards the end of the Jade Dragons compositions, and as a result, Kings have been ensuring that he's not going to get the Artemises, he's not going to get the Iznamis, and I think that while PandaCat is an excellent hunter, mechanically speaking, it's definitely ideal to have him on a pick that he can not only play aggressively with, but also just look to have a little bit more survivability, because OE, I think, is kind of stressed at times when it comes to survivability, and I think we really got some insight towards that in game number 2, but he's not going to take his chances. He's going to prioritize the Artemis early on. A lot of team fight already out of this Jade Dragons composition.
Yeah, this is why I love Game 3s out of these top-level teams. It really changes up that Game 3 dynamic of the picks and bans, where Game 1, you take maybe one nice little target ban at somebody, and then you just kind of go meta, and then you just run down the list. What's good? All right, cool, grab it. What's not good? Okay, whatever, grab it. Now we're in Game 3 where they're taking 30-plus seconds a pick because they really have to think, what are we willing to give away if we take X, Y, or Z here? They say, okay, we may be giving up Hurriwin's Giannis, but we're at least giving PandaCat Artemis, which has been banned away consistently. We're not picking up the Giannis, but we can get Sam for Soccer on something aggressive with this Erlang Shen. It's all these give and takes that have to go through every single one of these picks in their mind as to what they're willing to give up by taking something else.
Camelot Kings might want to start taking note of where Fafnir could end up falling here, because we know that Fafnir is something that the Jade Dragons definitely love running, and right now they've got 2 carries, J-Mac, that I think would definitely benefit from the likes of that Coerce. Artio going to be banned in that 4th, 5th position here, and Terra will meet a similar fate. Was curious to see whether or not the Camelot Kings would look to try and prioritize some of their front line, but one thing that can be said is all of the carries are established for the most part here from the Camelot Kings, and I actually think that this puts a little bit more favoritism towards the Jade Dragons, because I think I would rather have the front line intact as opposed to the other way around, because now you know exactly what the Camelot Kings are going to be looking to do from the damage options that they have taken here. And I think that for the Jade Dragons, they can continue just trying to hammer away at this heavy lockdown potential, because Hell only has 1 cleanse, and I wouldn't say that Raijin and Rom have the most reliable escapes, and if anything, the delay that they introduce with their ultimates could actually work in the Jade Dragons' favor.
They continue to push these bans further and further towards the picks here. Sylvanas? Okay, now, I know Genetics had a Sylvanas game. We've also seen one from Inbound as well previously, but a ban against Sylvanas when there's still...
Erlang Artemis.
Okay, Erlang Artemis, it's good for them. I would have imagined maybe a Khepri ban here. Give a little bit of extra safety, something maybe for this Hell. Would have been a great frontline asset to them. Lots of CC lockdown. The revive would have been a huge one for them, but I guess they feel that these 2 healers specifically, these more frontline-esque style of Guardians are maybe a bigger priority to take away from Genetics. That does leave the Gilgamesh open, however, and the Camelot Kings will make sure to take that one away. Not just with the Artemis, but they also make sure to take the Giannis away. So now we'll get to see where Hurriwin chooses to go towards.
Hurriwin could look to run it back on the Persephone, or he could even look towards Morgan Le Fay. That's also been another really popular pick. I would say even Hera has some viability here, but Fenrir going to be locked in first and foremost, and I think that might be the actual support choice for Polar Bear Mike here. But I also believe that a big aspect to take note of with this Erlang Shen and Artemis is that if the Camelot Kings go for a Khepri, I think they might have just sealed their fate in this set, J-Mac, because there is so much burst damage in general. It's not really even an emphasis around single target burst like the Camelot Kings love trying to deter with this Khepri, and I have some very steep concerns because there's just so much CC and lockdown potential.
Have one less Voss they'll play tomorrow against a very, very good Leviathans team, so a lot on the table here for these 2 teams. You want to play as few games as possible in the Phase 2 playoffs, and a win here for the Dragons would get them underway in that conversation, and same for the Kings.
And what better way to start Game 3 than with drafts like this? I think it exemplifies both of these styles, or team styles rather, incredibly well. I mean, the Camelot Kings are looking to extend the match, utilizing Hell and Khepri just to make these team fights hellish.
Rotation time and in the first early minutes of this game to make an impact strip some of those beads away.
But it's going to be hard. He's got 5 beads to strip away, so every single member of the Camelot Kings has CC immunity, if not inherently built into the kit, and some of them do, but also 5 beads in the relic slots. Netroid, though, caught out here inside the wave.
Sanford Soccer blinks forward, gets the pin, but Netroid has the beads. Will
Target swap.
Genetics now be caught out? No, Sanford Soccer will not use his ultimate. If PBM was level 5, things looking a little bit different there.
But Sledge picked up here. That's a large infusion of HP into your build. You got a decent amount of power here as well. I think PBM realizing that this has to be a quick pace for him because in the late game, in a late game team fight in particular, I don't think he's just about ever going to get a Ragnarok.
Well, that's such a good point, Miff, that I'll return to in a moment after Sanford Soccer duels out with Captain Twig, but it's a 3v1. This is not a 1v1. Sanford Soccer nearly winning it, but Captain Twig gets the Scarab's Blessing as if that mattered. And first blood over to the Camelot Kings and this Raijin.
Got a draft that is probably, bar none, one of the most disgusting, annoying drafts you could play against in Smite.
Variety cleanses himself of the pin of Sanford Soccer and then uses the bead, so Stygian Torment gets used by FineOK and not pulling Variety back in. Got to admire the attempt. Now there's a set of beads down on the right-hand side of the map if there's an opportunity to re-gank onto Variety. Netroid's beads just now coming back up, so we didn't see that double down on by the Jade Dragons. But still some pressure finding its way onto right. Sanford Soccer dashes into Variety. He uses the cleanse once again, waiting for the ultimate, but he doesn't need it. Sanford Soccer is stuck around on the right side of the map, and it pays off with a kill.
Captain Twig is hovering nearby, has the Winds of Shamash available, but Sam's going to heal up.
Yeah, Sam taunts him back in on
Not
the
in
drop
time.
kick. Perfect from Sanford Soccer, and the heal never came through. FineOK was not there either, so Captain Twig, big return kill. We've seen Erlang Shen in this set already. We've seen Erlang Shen struggle in this set already. By the time we reach late game, Captain Twig was having a hard time finding those engages, so that's something to keep your eyes on here. If you're the Jade Dragons or a Jade Dragons fan. Grasp of Death has rooted Captain Twig in, but is there a re-engage? It's a bit slow here, so Captain Twig able to walk away, and then there's a taunt in from Sanford Soccer. Winds of Shamash makes things interesting, but look at Big Man Ting's free casting on the back line. He's got the first kill. Taiko Drums pouring their way into FineOK. It's a Ragnarok from PBM, but Captain Twig just drop kicks onto Hurrywind. He'll leap away. It's a double kill for the Raijin. Hurry's got to get this one, but he won't. Captain Twig walks away.
Captain Twig is having one of the best weekends of his career so far, and Hurrywind on the receiving end. Triple for Big Man Tings. Tough one. Jade Dragons, they were looking for a fast one, Dave, and, well, they got it, but maybe not exactly how they wanted it.
What is it? From some of that early pressure. So you have to imagine, Miff, if you're the Jade Dragons right now, you find yourself not too far behind, but you are behind. You can't fight around this mid lane because Big Man Tings is just going to win the fight, it feels like.
He has a 2-level lead already. Captain Twig is rotating over to the soul lane, seeing if maybe he can catch out FineOK. Not this time around, but yeah, you're right, man. This Raijin is a threat. He's got good survivability in his own right, but Netroid, where are you walking?
I admire it, because it might result in a kill anyway. The snipes from Netroid are up. There's a trap down at the bottom. Watch out, and down goes Netroid. Tutsky stuck around, but ended up stunning Netroid. So Sanford Soccer whiffs on the initial, but ends up helping with the kill nonetheless. But now the Jade Dragons being dove on by the Pyromancer, and it is a rampage for Big Man Ting. So on one side of the map, you at least get a kill for your Artemis. But on another side of the map, Captain Twig's continuing to do what he's done this entire game. A Thunder Crash forward met with the Ragnarok, and that'll keep PBM on the map.
It will. He was able to walk his way out of there, but the Tier 1 tower removed from the map, and that's never coming back for the Jade Dragons. And that's a huge bastion of safety lost out. 100 is pretty average in its own right, unless you're playing jungle, in which case you're popping off if you're sitting around that 600 mark or support.
Right.
Generally, everyone else is about average. He's about 100 over where he should be.
Oh, it's a great boar from Panda Cat as Captain Twig jumped into the back, but Sanford Soccer is here as well. Netroid has to go up to the sky. It's a great Aegis from Panda Cat, and why not fight around the left side of the map? Netroid will survive, and there is a Scarab's Blessing here if there is a redive. Kind of a different story there for Netroid, where Sanford Soccer with the Stone Cutting Sword and the Toxic Blade was able to get Netroid, got him up into the ultimate, forced Genetics to come in, try to save his Hunter, so a bit more effective than the Hunter dive, maybe in large part due to the lead that's there, were the Jade Dragons. Stygian Torment used by FineOK and the stun as Captain Twig has made his way to the right, but no blue buff to invade, and ultimate just to get out of the fights, and then you're wondering where the engage is outside of some full rune leaps. And so, luckily for Mike, doesn't use his ultimate there, but when you've got Ankh and Blink, you're sacrificing the beads. Now Big Man Tings joins the rest of the Camelot Kings around this Oni Fury. Definitely not going all that quickly. Polar Bear Mike somewhat low here, not fully all that tanky just yet. Still has Ragnarok if he's able to find that opening. Frenzy gets used now by the Camelot Kings. Final K's in the back. Reset. Polar Bear Mike looking for a Ragnarok target, but Variety cleanses it on out. Big taunt in from Sanford Soccer. Look for Panicat in this fight. The boar flying through the Camelot Kings, and that'll send them right on back. It's a drop kick against the wall onto Final K. A double stun is there as well. Sanford Soccer getting sniped, and Netroid hits them all. Sanford Soccer is the first death in this one. Polar Bear Mike has to leap away, and somehow he'll survive. Final K abducted, and I think he'll be the last one to go down.
Panicat, the only one in range, still does avoid the Raiju, so should be able to stay alive in this one. The Jade Dragons just chase it out a little bit too far. It was a great taunt from Sanford Soccer. It was a phenomenal stun from Final K, but Hurrywind's not in range to follow up. Itself, if Netroid's hitting PBM, Sanford Soccer, or Final K, he's going to be much more effective than his contemporaries on the other side. Final K, isolated in the jungle, should be able to just walk out.
Final K does have beads. Don't want to have to use those.
Jump.
PBM does not have beads. Brutalize gets used. There's an abduct onto the Fenrir, and then a Ragnarok gets used for the CC immunity.
Wow.
Last bit of damage connects onto Mike. And so, yeah, Variety's built somewhat tanky here, but don't shrug off or don't ignore the damage that this hell can do. So now Mike, minus a Ragnarok, is going to have to help his team contest the FG, if there is a contest. I'm not sure there will be.
No, that Fire Giant is a foregone conclusion.
Wow.
Maybe with a Grasp of Death from all the way downtown. Could have attempted a steal, but Sam on the opposite side of the map. Panicat.
Gold Fury, and then maybe turn their eyes to the Phoenixes.
It's not a massive lead, so I do agree with them just going ahead and collecting as much gold as they can. Are approaching
Round
that
2.
6-item slot. Round 2 is happening, but I don't think Twig's going to let us have it.
Oh.
Truthfully, should just disengage from here, and there is no chase potential, as 9 turns Blessing has already been used by Sanford Soccer. So Camelot Kings pick up every remaining tower on the map and the gold free, head back to base. Safety net from Scarab's Blessing. They've got great isolation tools. As long as they can burn through Caledonian Boar and potentially Stygian Torment as well, I think they win the team fight.
Still a minute left on the FG buff, so still time to siege a mid lane Phoenix here for the Camelot Kings. Left lane minions get dealt with by the Phoenix. Everyone in the game has got their ultimates ready except Twig, except Sanford Soccer. So we might see a slight delay here. Sam does have his Hidden Blade, whereas Captain Twig does not, but a Heartseeker is a big advantage over a non-existent item there in the final slot for Sanford Soccer. So while that is a difference, it's more impactful as the completed Heartseeker. A lot of that damage connects onto Sam right now. Variety taken down
huge.
Somewhat low here. There's a big bit of lockdown from Sanford Soccer and Hurrywind as well. But now there's no Grasp of Death. Panicat takes 2 snipes from Netroid, so the Hunter has to back away. Frenzy gets used here as Big Man Tings sends some damage out with the Taiko drums. Polar Bear Mike has to use the Ragnarok to get out, and the Camelot Kings have bought space, and they bought a mid lane Phoenix.
They play it so well, waiting for these tools to get used. Stygian Torment, expended, go in. We send Netroid up to the air, target Panicat, drop him down to half. No way, Panicat sticks around. Go.
That has almost made the second FG non-contestable in a couple of games here, and I think that's what the Jade Dragons are thinking as well.
Race?
They go to the left side of the map, considering the left side Phoenix. That'll send a couple members of the Camelot Kings back to base. And if nothing else, it's just delayed the FG. You have to go back now if you're the Jade Dragons. PBM's going to deal with this mid-fire wave, excuse me.
Yeah, the Jade Dragons, I think, maybe considering, all right, Fire Giant spawning right now. We know exactly when it spawns because they got the timer from it last time. So they try and strip away that left side Phoenix, but the Camelot Kings, ever privy to that strategy, are able to reset in time. Does delay the Fire Giant going down by just a moment. Sanford Soccer, kind of stubborn, trying to keep up this push on the opposite side, but it's not fast enough, and he's not enough as one man. All they have to do is strip some of these defensive tools from the Jade Dragons and re-engage.
Watch out for Captain Twig, who now has the Mannequin's Hidden Blade. Top damage in the game goes to Gilgamesh. That might continue here if the space is big enough that Big Man Tings is helping create. At 5:02, Big Man Tings continuing his run, but there are still 100% kill participation for the Camelot Kings jungler. Twig pushes in the mid-wave And now there's a leap in on the right side from Polar Bear Mike. Ragnarok gets used here, but
dead.
he's immediately just abducted back in. The Camelot Kings have found the opening kill. Twig will jump away, but here are the snipes from Netrioid.
Hurrywin drop down low,
They hit.
half before the
They
fight.
hit.
Camelot Kings gonna take this Phoenix easily. Jade Dragons still have a couple of tools to work with. Stygian Torment, 9 turns Blessing, and Caledonian
Wow.
War available. PBM though, dead for 30.
How many times have we seen Mike use Ragnarok, walk forward, realize he's getting nothing, and then try to turn
can he
around? Right, that's what I mean.
He can't grab anybody.
He can't do anything. Feels like it's either going to get cleansed, it's going to get Scarabs blessed, or he's just going to die. And unfortunately, only has 2 deaths, but pretty indicative of the way that this game has gone.
Not had a single Ragnarok come through this game, I'm pretty sure. Maybe one towards that 10-minute mark. And Panda Cat,
Oh
what are you
no, Panda Cat has to use the boar, and look at the onslaught onto the Jade Dragons Hunter. Captain Twig deletes them, and now the Jade Dragons are defending their lives in this set against a Camelot Kings team who's got everyone. Poor Bear Mike will leap away. Now it's Sanford Soccer left alone with the Kings draft, and he'll get whittled on down by Netrioid, who's aggressive. He's forward, he's dealing the damage. Final K will use the beads, but he's thunder crashed on by big man Tings, and the siege is here.
Can't be losing your win condition that early.
big
Mike
stun.
in.
Hurrywin now can supply some damage, but not if Twig has anything to say about it. The Camelot Kings decimate the Dragons in game 3.
Kepri, but quite honestly, J-Mac, that was irrelevant. Captain Twig and Big Man Tinks just completely shut down this Jade Dragons composition, and I think the most impactful part was just Big Man Tinks finding that early triple kill in response. I liked what the Jade Dragons were doing in terms of trying to play out of the duo lane. I think putting a lot of pressure onto Netroid was the right direction, but have to pay attention to what's happening elsewhere on the map at the same time. And Tings being able to collect a triple kill this early on into the game was just disastrous for the Dragons.
And Mifflin pointed out the variant of the cast, but I want to reiterate onto it. Right now, jungle seems to be one of the weaker roles, but you would not believe it with the performance that Captain Twig had in this third game, playing lights out. May have been one of the better sets of this phase coming from him, specifically one of the better games coming from him. This Gilgamesh, the fact that it was banned so many times early on, and then it made it through 2 games in a row, and Captain Twig comes out with this performance for the Gilgamesh, it's no surprise that we're seeing Gilgamesh and Raijin and even Osiris be some of the top picked and banned gods this phase.
Yeah, it's incredible to think that Panda Cat, for some of the successes that were taking place, again, with some of those early punishes, they had a couple of picks going against Netroid, but when you lose control of the mid-solo sides of the map, especially against a healer composition like what the Camelot Kings were running, it is just overwhelming.
That affects the standings a little bit here for our first one. Now, with the Bolts, they got 1 less game than the Camelot Kings, but that head-to-head, I believe, does manage to favor the Kings for the time. So right now, they're kind of sitting back and waiting for that Olympus Bolts game that's going to be happening tomorrow.
Yeah, the Olympus Bolts games, I think, has a lot riding behind it. But probably Olympus Bolts still feeling pretty good about how their Split 2 performance has gone so far. I think it's also the Leviathans that are looking to try and round things out here. I think a little bit more pressure onto the Leviathans in terms of just trying to continue elevating themselves. As you can see, Olympus Bolts later on in the week up against the Valhalla Valkyries, and that's something that I know for a fact the Camelot Kings probably sweating a little bit.
Yeah, and the Camelot Kings have to deal with the Oni Warriors later on for their matchup as well. So there's a lot riding on that Olympus Bolts and Leviathans match.